All right, welcome. This is graphing slope-intercept form. So we've talked about how to find slopes. We already found out how to find x and y intercepts. So we're bringing it together and making an equation using slopes and the y-intercept. So an equation whose graph is a line, a straight line, is called a linear equation. The rate of change is also known as the slope. The point where the line crosses the y-axis is called y-intercept. So slope-intercept form is this equation, y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, so let's get into some problems. It says tell the slope, I don't know if that actually makes sense. Find the slope and y-intercept of the linear equations. Okay, here we have an equation, y equals 2x minus 3. So again, we have y equals mx plus b. So m is 2 and b is negative 3. Number 2, what this form right here, this is slope-intercept form. Here for number 2, this is standard form. Okay, and we will be talking about how to switch between standard and intercept form. For here, that's pretty easy. Okay, we want to get y by itself. Okay, so we have two choices. We could add y to both sides, and then we could subtract 5 from both sides, and we'd get y equals 3x minus 5. Okay. Or if you wanted to try it differently, you could, let's try it a different way. You could subtract 3x from both sides, and then we'd need to divide both sides by a negative 1. Okay, and you would end up getting the exact same thing. Okay, you'd get y equals, now we'd have a positive 3x, and we'd have a negative 5. Okay, they're the same. All right, so then we want to write down our m. Well, m is 3, and b is negative 5. Okay, so we went from equations to finding the slope and y-intercept. Here we're going to look at some where we want to write the equation after they've given us the slope and y-intercept. So here we'd have y equals m, which is our slope, 1/2, x plus b, which would be 6. Or here we have a slope of 0, so y equals m is 0, so we'd have 0x, and the intercept for b would be minus 6. 0x is just 0, so our answer would be y equals negative 6. Now let's find some slopes, slope, y-intercept, and the equation using a graph. Okay, so slope, we'd always want to find some sort of point that looks like it's a good point, like there, and then another one like here. Rise would be 1, run would be 4. So slope would be 1/4. The y-intercept would be the point where it crosses the y-axis. Again, here's our y-axis. This would be our x-axis. So our point for our y-intercept would be 0, negative 5. Okay, so you'd go start at 0, 1, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. Okay, now we want to write our equation. Okay, so this would be m for our slope. Okay, and we get y equals m x plus b. And b is a negative 5. Here's another example. Here, easily that is our y-intercept would be 0, 0. And we want to find some sort of another point where we could do our slope. So we'd go down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then negative 5, and then we'd go over 3. Okay? And then the equation would be y equals negative 5/3 x plus 0. Or just leaving it like that would be sufficient. Okay, here's another example. here's a good point, here's a good point. Rise over run would be 1 over 1, which would just be 1. Okay. And the y-intercept would be 0, comma 1. Remember, when we're doing ordered pairs, it's always x, comma y. This is your x, should be 0. And our y would be at 1. Okay, our equation would be y equals 1x, which is just x. 1 times x is x. And then plus 1. Okay, here's another point, and another point. Okay, slope here would go down 1 over 6, so negative 1/6. Y-intercept looks like that's about 3.5. Okay, and if we wrote that as a fraction, that would be negative 7/2. Our equation would be y equals negative 1/6 x minus 7/2. Okay, that's the same as negative 3.5. Okay, let's do some other problems. They give us an equation. We want to find the slope, y-intercept, and then graph. So here, looking at our equation, m is our slope, which is the same as 2 over 1 if you wanted to have your rise over run. And then our y-intercept would be 0, comma negative 1. So first we want to find our point for our y-intercept, which would be 0, negative 1. And then our rise would be 2 over 1. 2 over 1. 2 over 1. And then the opposite way as well. Okay, you might want to have a ruler or something. I told you before in class, I said that as long as you have your points in the right spot, if you're off a little bit, kind of like that, it's a little wonky, you'll still be fine. Okay, 8. All right, if you wanted to write this as a full y equals mx plus b, you'd have to do plus 0 to help you understand, or maybe to come up with the y-intercept, which would be 0, comma 0. Okay, and then our slope is negative 2/3, so we'd have to go down 2 over 3. Down 2 over 3. Down 2 over 3. And then you'd go the same way. You'd go over 3 up 2, over 3 up 2. Okay, and that's where it gives our nice graph. All right, here's another one. Okay, our slope is 1/4, and our y-intercept is 0, comma negative 1/2, which would be somewhere around that point, would be our y-intercept. We'd do a rise over run, so we'd go up 1, and then we'd go over 1, 2, 3, 4. Up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you'd go the other direction as well. Okay. Next, we have another slope of 5/3 and a y-intercept of 0, comma negative 7. Should be right here, I think. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. And then our slope is rise of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then over 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. And then we just connect all of our dots. Something like that. All right, some other problems. Here we have some problems where it's just y equals something and c equals, or x equals something. So a horizontal line, something like this would be a horizontal line, is the form y equals some constant. Okay, so like y equals 3, for example, number 3. Okay, let's see, where was that? Yeah, some sort of constant. Has a slope of 0. Okay, a horizontal line is always a slope of 0, a 0 slope. So if we look at 11, y equals has a slope of 0, and a y-intercept would be 0, 3. And it would be a horizontal line going through the y-axis where y equals 3. Okay, going back to vertical lines, vertical line is something that goes up and down, has the form x equals a different constant. Okay, so it has an undefined slope. So we'd do the same thing. Slope here would be undefined. X-intercept would be -5, 0. Okay, because x goes first, x, y. And that would be -5, which I think is right here. And it would be a vertical line. All right, so pause and see if you can do these ones. Slope of 0, y-intercept 0, -4. So something like this. And then slope here would be undefined and has an x-intercept of 7, 0. Should be something like this. Okay, sorry, my lines aren't very good. Okay, next it says sketch the graph of each line. So here they give us the x and y-intercept. So x-intercept here would be 4, y-intercept would be a -2. Okay, and then we find out that we have a rise over run, which would be 2/4. So it would continue with that same pattern to make our full graph. Okay, and then from there we can come up with an equation. Y equals, well, the slope here we wrote was 2/4. Okay, rise over run, which simplified would be 1/2. 2/4 is the same as 1/2. And then it has a y-intercept of -2. Okay, here's another one. Looks like I didn't erase this very well. X-intercept would be 8, 0, and y-intercept would be 0, 8. We'll do a line straight through those 2 points. All right, and if we wanted to have an equation, y equals the slope here, if we look at that, it'd be a -1/1. So that would be -1/1 is just -1/1 is just -1. So we'd have -1x, and then the y-intercept would be 0, 8, so it would be +8. Okay, 17, we'll do another example. X-intercept would be 0, and it says the y-intercept is -4, or -2. Okay, if we drew a line between those 2 points, we would get a vertical line where x equals 0. And then here we have an x-intercept of -1 and a y-intercept of a -3. So here we'd have a slope of -3/1. Y equals -3/1, which is just -3. X, and then our y-intercept was -3. And we'd continue that slope so that we can finish our graph. Okay, something like that. All right, and that's everything we went over in class. Let's look at the homework really quick. I think I might have, oh yeah, there was a word problem. Okay, I was going to do a word problem with you. Okay, so Jim saves $40 to play laser tag with his friends. A 15-minute session cost $8. Okay, so the slope here is a little different. The slope here is $8 for every 15 minutes. So it'd be dollars per minute. Gosh, I'm almost dead with my battery. Okay, so that's our slope. Our y-intercept here, our y-intercept would be 0, 40, would start at $40. So that's would be our initial value. So if we did a little graph of this, it would start at 40, and every 15 minutes, or we'd do this, I guess it'd be negative because we're losing money, we'd go down 8 over 15. So this is kind of tough to get this. Actually, let's change this. Okay, let's change this to be 10, just to make it easier for you. Okay, so we're going to go down 10 over 15. So down 10, so give us 30, and would go over 15 minutes. Okay, we'll do it again. Another $10 to give us 15 more minutes. Okay, and then again, if we continued this graph, we'll come to here after 45 minutes, and then one more 15 minutes would get us all the way to 0. So this would be 60 minutes. Okay, I'm going to mess that up. Let's rewrite this. This would be 45, and this would be 50 and 55. Okay, so we have the whole graph. All right, so it says, write an equation. We have y equals, our slope is negative 10 over 15. Okay, and you could simplify that fraction, but I'm just going to leave it that to keep it more simplified, since that's what we're talking about. Not simplified, but makes more sense. Okay, negative 10 over 15, and then our y-intercept was plus $40. Okay, and then interpret the x and y intercepts, right? So at the y-intercept, I would say, what's the guy's name, Jim? Yep, Jim had $40 when he started playing. Okay, and then for this would be our y-intercept. The x-intercept would be something like after 60 minutes, Jim has no money. Okay, and that would be about it. So you can try and do that with 17. If you get this, I would probably, well, you got this, okay? Let me know if you have any questions. All right, see ya.